Hi, thanks for coming to listen to this poster recording. So today I'll be sharing some work exploring the role counterfactual simulation plays in learning. If you want to see me present this in person, I'll be at the in-person poster session number 1 on Thursday. So when we talk about learning, we usually think of it as a process that involves observing some sort of like new information from the outside world. But we know that learning doesn't just occur from things that are outside of our heads. We also learn by thinking. For example, you might imagine how revisiting a past chess match and reasoning through how someone could have played better might allow us to discover some new insights. Um, and understanding how we do that is going to be the focus of our work today. And in particular, we're going to be focusing on the extent to which we can use a particular form of thinking, counterfactual simulation, to learn a better world model or some better understanding of the dynamics of how the world unfolds. And so to test this, we manipulated whether participants explicitly engaged in counterfactual simulation in this like grid world environment, where they're learning some sort of like latent features of the environment through experience, and some are also given explicit trials to simulate counterfactuals. And then we're testing them in an exam about this like latent information. And so how that works is the task is divided into a learning phase and an exam trial, where in the learning phase, people are placed in this grid world, this like quicksand desert, where they're trying to go from start to goal, and they're trying to avoid these slowing tiles called quicksand. And so they start out over here at the left, and they're trying to plan a path that goes somewhere to this goal location, and they don't know which tiles are quicksand or not. And from trial to trial, whether a tile is quicksand or not changes according to some sort of like latent property. Specifically, each tile is either safe or unsafe, where the safe tiles are never quicksand and unsafe tiles are quicksand 80% of the time. Um, and so over the trials, they're making a plan and then they're watching the agent follow this path. And from their observations, they're going to like eventually acquire some sort of like knowledge of which tiles are safe or unsafe. Um, and so we had a between subjects design where half of the participants completed 15 of these experience trials in a block in total as they're sort of like learning. And another set of participants did the same thing, except between each trial, they did this counterfactual where they are reinitialized at the start of the start square. They see the result of their path that they just did, and they're asked to make a better path to get to the goal. And so after they do this set of learning, either with or without a counterfactual, they then have an exam trial where they're tested on uh, how well they're able to get whether a tile is safe or unsafe for each of the tiles in the environment. And they do this just by clicking on a sort of display where you click once for safe and twice for unsafe. And so what we found was that we didn't actually find evidence for improved performance from counterfactual simulation. And in this case, what we mean by performance is in the paths that they actually take, how many unsafe tiles do they end up clicking on or like putting in their path? We found that between subjects, there was no selective benefit of counterfactual simulation. However, we did find that they did overall improve with experience. Um, Moreover, in the exam trials, we can count the number of tiles that they guessed correctly. This is an 8 by 3 grid, so there's 12 total. And we found that like across conditions, engaging in counterfactuals also did not yield a better world model. Um, but this is interesting because like if you look at the paths that were taken that participants took, um, the counterfactual paths that they did take would have contained fewer unsafe tiles than the paths actually taken, which makes sense because they're also essentially like conditioning on their observations on that same day. And so what we have here is a situation where like people are able to essentially like make useful counterfactual paths that are better in performance than otherwise. but they're not yielding any improvements in their sort of like world model or their like ability to avoid quicksand. Um, and so in future work, we're going to be exploring the extent to which people can uh, use the same notion of counterfactual simulation to learn better action policies, or like specifically like these sort of actions or decisions you might make, and not necessarily about like information about the environment. Yeah, so thanks for listening.